If you're a woman who has spent half her life giving love, attention, and patience, you may have forgotten that deep inside, there still lives a woman who longs not to be perfect, but to be seen, to be touched not just on the skin, but in the soul. Carl Jung once said, "The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed." And yet, in most relationships, that alchemy never happens. Because so many women are taught to be safe, to be good, to make others comfortable, even in the most intimate corners of their lives. You've been conditioned to hide your chaos, to tame your hunger, to keep your voice soft even when your soul screams. But every woman, even the most composed, responsible, mature, one carries a shadow of unspoken longing. It's not always sexual. It's about aliveness, a longing to dissolve the walls, to feel the sacred union of body and soul, where control disappears and truth begins. These are the 6 secret desires that women dream of, not the ones sold by magazines or dating gurus, but the ones that echo from the depths of the feminine unconscious. They are not fantasies to entertain. They are doorways to healing, to wholeness, to the part of you that the world made you forget. So, before we begin, take a breath. Let go of the idea that this is about someone else understanding you. This is about you remembering yourself. Because when a woman dares to touch her hidden desires without shame, when she stops apologizing for wanting more than safety, she doesn't just transform her relationships. She awakens her soul's erotic intelligence. The 6 secrets we're about to explore are not techniques. They are archetypal initiations that Jung himself would have recognized stages through which the feminine awakens her power, her tenderness, and her truth. The forbidden territory of desire. Every woman carries a landscape within her that few have ever seen a territory of desire that's not about sex, but truth. For centuries, this inner landscape has been called dangerous. The church called it sin. Society called it madness. Even psychology once called it hysteria. But Jung saw something different. He saw that beneath every woman's restraint lies an untamed force, the eros that connects her to life itself. This isn't the kind of desire that seeks to be consumed. It's the desire to feel again after years of emotional numbness, to feel alive, to be met with depth instead of politeness, to be held in a way that doesn't just touch her skin, but unlocks her soul. The first secret, the one that women dream of but rarely confess, is this. She doesn't just want to be desired. She wants to surrender to something worthy of her surrender. That something isn't necessarily a man. It's a force, a pulse of life that claims her back from the years she spent being everything to everyone else. When Jung spoke about the integration of the shadow, he was describing exactly this process. The woman who stops repressing her hunger for intensity and instead learns to make love to it consciously. Because the truth is, when desire is repressed, it doesn't die. It hides. It hides behind perfectionism, control, exhaustion, people-pleasing. It disguises itself as overachievement or self-sacrifice. But in the dark, it whispers, "There must be more than this." And that whisper is sacred. When a woman begins to listen to it, her life starts to tremble at its roots. She begins to sense that what she craves is not another person, but permission. Permission to feel everything again: rage, pleasure, tenderness, loss, without apology. The forbidden territory of desire is not a bedroom. It's a state of consciousness. It's the place inside where she no longer divides herself into good and bad, holy and unholy, mother and lover. It's where she stops living from her conditioning and starts living from her body, her intuition, her rhythm, her yes and her no. Jung wrote that the soul is partly in time and partly in eternity. Desire is the bridge between those two worlds. Every true longing you have for connection, for beauty, for being seen, is a message from the eternal part of you, calling you home. But because the world has punished women for being too much, many have built entire identities around being less emotional, less demanding, less sensual, less alive. They wear self-control like armor, mistaking numbness for peace. And yet, when she finally meets someone or something that mirrors her hidden fire back to her, that armor begins to crack. Not because of lust, but because she recognizes herself. It's not him she's longing for. It's the part of her that can finally feel again. In Jungian terms, this is the reunion with the shadow lover, the unacknowledged inner masculine that doesn't dominate but awakens. He doesn't come to own her. He comes to remind her that she already belongs to her body, her emotions, her instincts, her divine chaos. And here lies the paradox. When a woman reclaims her forbidden desire, she doesn't become wild in the destructive sense. She becomes whole. Her sensuality softens into wisdom. Her passion becomes prayer. Her pleasure becomes presence. So, if you've ever felt a longing, you couldn't name an ache that wasn't physical but spiritual, you've already touched this first secret. It's the soul's way of saying, you are not meant to live only half alive. In Jungian language, this is the beginning of individuation through eros, when your deepest desires stop being something to hide and become the compass that guides you toward your most authentic self. The forbidden territory is not something to fear, it is the gate. And only when a woman dares to walk through it trembling, honest, alive, does she finally meet the part of herself that no one else can awaken for her. The power of surrender. There comes a moment in every woman's life when control stops feeling like strength and begins to feel like exhaustion. She's held everything together, the family, the career, the emotional balance of everyone around her for so long that she's forgotten what it feels like to let go, to not manage every outcome, to not be the one who always understands. Carl Jung called this the tyranny of the persona, the mask we wear to survive in the world. For women, that mask is often called competence. It looks like strength, but sometimes it's just fear. Fear of being disappointed, of losing safety, of being too vulnerable in a world that rarely holds softness well. But underneath that armor, there's another current flowing quietly. It's not weakness. It's a deeper strength that comes from surrender. This is the second secret. The feminine doesn't crave control. She craves trust. Not blind trust in another person, but sacred trust in life itself. When a woman begins to awaken spiritually, she starts to realize how much of her energy has gone into resisting the natural flow of her own emotions, trying to look fine when she's breaking, trying to smile when she's aching, trying to understand when her soul just wants to feel. Jung wrote that, "What you resist not only persists, but grows in size." Every time a woman resists her tears, her body tightens. Every time she suppresses her anger, it turns inward as fatigue. Every time she tries to control love, it slips away, because love cannot breathe inside a cage. Surrender, in the Jungian sense, isn't about submission or passivity. It's about integration. It's the point where the ego bows before the self, that greater intelligence within you that sees far beyond your plans. Think of it this way. Your soul has been whispering to you through every breakdown you've ever had, The nights you couldn't stop crying, the mornings you woke up feeling empty even though everything looked perfect, the relationships where you loved harder than you should have and lost yourself anyway. Each one was life saying, "You can stop fighting now, there's another way." The power of surrender begins when you realize that control never kept you safe, it only kept you small. To surrender is to finally exhale. It's the moment you unclench your jaw, release your stomach, and allow your breath to fall deep into your belly. It's saying to the universe, "I don't need to know what happens next. I just need to be here." In intimacy, surrender is not about giving your power away. It's about returning it to its true source, the body. A woman who has learned to trust her body has learned to trust the language of her soul. She listens when her body says no, and she honors when it says yes. She doesn't perform pleasure, she allows it. She doesn't chase love, she receives it. Jung saw this as the reconciliation of the anima and animus, the inner feminine and masculine. When they stop competing for control, a divine harmony begins to emerge. The masculine within you no longer needs to dominate. It begins to protect, to hold space, to guide. And your inner feminine no longer needs to hide. She begins to open, to feel, to trust. This inner marriage is the sacred heart of surrender. It's where doing transforms into being, where effort turns into ease, where the mind finally bows to the wisdom of the heart. For many women, the first time they truly experience surrender is not in meditation or prayer, but in love. Not the love of fairy tales, but the love that strips away all illusions. When someone's presence is so safe, so grounded, that you can finally let your guard down and cry, or laugh, or tremble without shame, that is sacred surrender. Not because of them, but because you've allowed yourself to return home. There is a beauty in that moment that words can't touch. It's when your body, for the first time in years, feels like a temple instead of a battlefield. It's when pleasure stops being something you earn and becomes something you remember. So, if lately you've felt your strength cracking, if you've been trying to hold everything together and something in you just wants to fall apart, let it. Falling apart is not failure. It's the beginning of falling into yourself. That's the power of surrender. It's not about giving up control to someone else. It's about releasing control so you can finally hear the voice of your own soul. When a woman learns this art, she doesn't collapse, she blooms. Because surrender, in its truest form, isn't the end of her power. It's the beginning of her freedom. The language of devotion. There are many ways a woman can be touched through the body, the eyes, the hands, but the deepest touch is the one that happens through words. Not the everyday words of logic and arrangement, but the ones that reach beneath the surface, the words that make her remember herself. Carl Jung once wrote, "Words are animals, alive with a soul." He understood that the psyche doesn't speak in facts. It speaks in symbols, tone, and presence. That is why a single sentence can pierce the heart more deeply than 1,000 gestures. For the feminine soul, words are not decoration. They are energy in motion. They carry vibration, intention, truth. They are bridges between two inner worlds. And when spoken with awareness, they become the language of devotion, not devotion to another, but to the sacred field between two souls. This is the third secret. A woman doesn't long to be convinced. She longs to be communed with, because deep down, she has always been listening to every pause, every silence, every tone beneath the tone. She can feel when words are used to perform, and when they rise from the heart like prayer. When she hears, "You're beautiful," but the voice carries no presence. She nods politely, but her body does not open. When she hears, "I see you," and the air vibrates with sincerity, something in her melts without permission. That is the mystery of language in love. It is never the vocabulary that matters. It is the consciousness behind it. For years, many women have lived in relationships full of words, but starved of presence. They've learned to interpret compliments as currency and conversations as negotiations. And yet, what they truly crave is communion, the kind of exchange where words are simply carriers for something much greater: truth. Jung would have said that such communication arises when two people meet, not persona to persona, but soul to soul, when the inner masculine, the principle of clarity and direction, and the inner feminine, the principle of feeling and receptivity, begin to speak the same language. When that happens, a woman no longer needs poetry to feel desired, because presence is poetry. She doesn't need grand declarations. She feels devotion in the pauses between breaths. The language of devotion is slow. It doesn't rush to fill the silence. It listens to it. It's not a performance to impress, but a listening so deep that words start to sound like remembering. Sometimes that language doesn't even need sound. It's in the way he looks at her when she's not trying to be beautiful. It's in the way she exhales in his presence, finally safe enough to stop pretending. It's in the tiny sacred moments, a hand on the back, a quiet "I'm here," whispered without words. And yet, there is also power in speaking consciously, courageously, vulnerably, because the feminine psyche awakens through naming. To name what she feels, her longing, her fear, her joy, is to make it real, to pull it from the unconscious into the light. Every "I want" she dares to speak is a prayer of reclamation. Many women silence their truth because they've been taught it's too much, too emotional, too intense, too needy. But Jung's work reminds us, what is not made conscious becomes fate. What you silence becomes shadow. So every time she says, "This is what I feel," she reclaims a piece of her own destiny. The language of devotion, then, is not just between lovers. It's the dialogue between you and your own soul. The way you speak to yourself when you wake up. The way you whisper, "I forgive you," to the parts of you that once begged for love. The way you say, "I am ready to life," even after disappointment. When a woman learns to speak to herself this way, gently, honestly, reverently, her entire vibration changes. She no longer needs validation, because her own voice has become the source of it. And from that place, when she does meet another, her words no longer come from emptiness. They come from overflow. That is devotion, not a religion, but a rhythm. The rhythm of love made conscious. The rhythm of two souls saying yes to truth at the same time. So if your soul has grown quiet lately, if you feel unseen, even in company, perhaps life is inviting you to speak again, not louder, but truer. Because the feminine voice is not meant to beg for attention. It is meant to call the divine into form. That is the third secret, the language of devotion, where silence becomes sacred and every word becomes a prayer that opens the heart a little wider than before. The shadow of passion. Every woman who walks the path of awakening eventually meets a threshold, a place both magnetic and terrifying, where love turns into fire and gentleness collides with something raw, ancient, and untamed. This is where the shadow of passion lives. Jung called the shadow the part of the psyche we refuse to see, not because it is evil, but because it is powerful. It holds everything we were told to suppress: our rage, our hunger, our wildness, our lust, our instinct to say no, and our even deeper instinct to say yes. For many women, passion has been confused with danger. We were taught that too much feeling would make us irrational, too much sensuality would make us shameful, too much wanting would make us unlovable. So we learned to tone ourselves down, to fold our wings neatly behind our backs. But the soul doesn't forget what the mind tries to erase. Somewhere inside, that forbidden energy still trembles to be lived. It shows up in dreams of storms and rivers, in sudden bursts of creativity or tears, in the ache that rises when you hear a certain song or catch a scent that reminds you of who you used to be before you became appropriate. This is the fourth secret. Passion isn't what burns you out. It's what burns away everything that isn't you. When you begin to reclaim this shadow, your erotic intelligence, your instinctual fire, you might feel afraid of its intensity. It doesn't feel spiritual. It feels messy, alive, unpredictable. But Jung warned, the soul cannot awaken through purity alone. It needs the friction of opposites, the holy and the human, the sacred and the animal, to generate light. The shadow of passion isn't darkness. It's raw aliveness before it's been sanitized. It's the force that says, I want, not in greed, but in truth. To want to allow your body to want, your soul to want, is to acknowledge the divine pulse of creation moving through you. When this energy is denied, it leaks out sideways, through obsession, anxiety, boredom, self-sabotage. But when it's embraced, it becomes radiance. It turns sexuality into prayer, movement into ritual, love into transformation. There is an old alchemical symbol Jung loved, a serpent swallowing its own tail, the Ouroboros. It represents the cycle of destruction and renewal. Passion is that serpent within you. It consumes what is false so that truth can be reborn. In intimacy, this means you stop performing pleasure and start inhabiting it. You stop chasing approval and start embodying truth. You no longer fear your depth. You let it speak through you. Sometimes it roars, sometimes it cries, sometimes it just breathes. To reclaim the shadow of passion is not to become reckless. It's to become responsible for your energy. It's to hold your desire like a sacred flame, not too tightly, or it dies, not too loosely, or it consumes everything. It's to recognize that your sensuality is not a weapon or a weakness. It is the rhythm of the universe moving through your skin. When a woman integrates this part of herself, her presence changes. She no longer attracts through effort, but through frequency. People feel her before she speaks. They sense a wholeness, a quiet confidence that doesn't need to seduce, it simply is. And yet, this transformation often requires walking through fire. It means confronting the parts of you that once confused pain with love, control with safety, dominance with devotion. It means forgiving yourself for the ways you dimmed your light just to be accepted. It means allowing your body to become an altar again, not for anyone else, but for your own truth. So, if lately your emotions feel wild, if your body pulses with restlessness, if you find yourself craving touch, art, movement, or freedom, don't rush to fix it. That's not you falling apart. That's your shadow calling to be integrated, because passion is not the opposite of peace. It's the doorway to it. When you stop fighting your fire, it begins to guide you, not to chaos, but to clarity. Jung wrote that the most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. This is what the fourth secret demands: to let yourself be both the storm and the stillness, the flame and the light it casts. When you meet your shadow with love, you realize that what you once called too much was simply your soul trying to feel alive again. The Alchemy of Union. There is a moment after the fire when everything becomes quiet again. Not the quiet of emptiness, the quiet of arrival. The air feels cleaner. Your breath comes easier. You are no longer chasing, no longer performing. Something in you has softened. Something else fierce and ancient has awakened. This is the moment Jung called conjunctio, the sacred union, the meeting of opposites within the soul. It's what all the myths, all the loves, all the heartbreaks have been trying to teach you. That wholeness was never waiting in another person. It was waiting in you. The fifth secret is this: true union is not found in possession. It's born in the alchemy between your light and your shadow. When the feminine within you meets her own inner masculine, something miraculous happens. The endless tug of war between doing and being, control and surrender, reason and intuition begins to dissolve. You start to move through life, not as fragments, but as harmony. Your inner masculine, the part of you that decides, acts, protects, no longer needs to dominate. He becomes the sacred container, the riverbank. And your inner feminine, the part that feels, dreams, creates, finally feels safe to flow freely again. Together, they form the living paradox of strength and softness, action with grace, stillness with purpose. This is what real balance looks like. Not a static piece, but a living dance, the moon and the sun meeting in your heart. It's not about choosing between independence and intimacy, logic and emotion, body and spirit. It's about letting them make love inside you until they give birth to something new, wisdom. For most of your life, you may have looked for this harmony outside yourself, in lovers who mirrored your unhealed parts, in achievements that promised validation, in spiritual practices that tried to erase your humanness. But the truth is, you were never meant to erase anything. You were meant to integrate it. Alchemy, Jung said, was not about turning lead into gold. It was about transforming the dense matter of the soul pain, longing, shame into light. And that process always happens in relationship. First, the inner relationship, the marriage between the parts of you that once feared each other. Then, the outer one, where you begin to meet others, not from need, but from wholeness. When a woman reaches this stage, she no longer seeks completion through love. She shares her completion through love. She doesn't cling. She connects. She doesn't demand. She receives and gives in equal rhythm. She no longer fears losing someone, because she knows that what is real cannot be taken, only reflected. Every encounter becomes sacred. Even a fleeting glance, a conversation, a night of intimacy, all of it becomes a mirror through which the soul recognizes itself. You start to see your lovers not as saviors, but as collaborators in your evolution. Some come to awaken your fire. Some come to teach you boundaries. Some come simply to remind you that you are capable of love again. None of them were mistakes. All were messengers. This realization changes everything. You stop asking, "Why did this happen to me?" and start asking, "What is this trying to reveal within me?" That shift from blame to awareness is the philosopher's stone of emotional alchemy. It turns suffering into meaning, heartbreak into art, endings into beginnings. When you live from this place, even desire changes texture. It's no longer an ache for what's missing. It becomes devotion to what is. Every breath becomes an act of love. Every moment becomes a union between your human and your divine self. This is the mystery the mystics called hieros gamos, the sacred marriage. It doesn't happen in a temple. It happens every time you choose presence over fear, truth over pretense, tenderness over control. So, when you love now, you love differently, not to escape loneliness, but to celebrate existence, not to fill a void, but to expand a fullness. And even when you are alone, you are never lonely, because the beloved you once searched for lives quietly behind your ribs, breathing with you. That is the fifth secret. When the inner union is achieved, outer love becomes effortless. You no longer fall in love, you rise in love. You become both flame and light, both giver and receiver, and the world, through your very presence, begins to feel a little more whole. The ecstasy of wholeness. When you reach this point, there is no longer a destination left to chase, no lesson left to prove, no role left to perform. There is only breath, deep, slow, honest, and a quiet knowing that you have come home to yourself. This is the sixth and final secret. Wholeness is not perfection. It is the ecstasy of being utterly human and divinely alive at the same time. For years, perhaps decades, you believed that peace would come after the storm, that love would arrive once you had healed enough, that joy would return once you had finally figured yourself out. But now you see what Jung meant when he said, "The soul would have no rainbow if the eyes had no tears." Wholeness isn't the absence of shadow. It's the intimacy you have learned to share with it. It's the moment you can look at your scars and feel tenderness instead of shame. It's realizing that even your mistakes were forms of prayer, clumsy, beautiful, sincere attempts to find your way back to light. The ecstasy of wholeness doesn't erupt like fireworks. It hums quietly beneath the skin, a deep pulse of gratitude that you are still here. Not broken, not fixed, just real. It is the joy of inhabiting your body after years of living in your head, the thrill of noticing sunlight on your face, laughter spilling from your mouth, tears that no longer sting but cleanse. It's a love that doesn't need an object, because it's no longer seeking permission to exist. In Jungian psychology, this state is the completion of individuation, the full integration of your conscious and unconscious, masculine and feminine, heaven and earth. You become a bridge between worlds, as grounded as soil, as fluid as water, as luminous as fire, as infinite as air. Nothing in you is exiled anymore. You can finally hold contradictions without collapsing. Strength and softness, passion and peace, desire and surrender, they coexist inside you like old friends who no longer need to fight for attention. And when you walk through the world in this way, something miraculous happens. You begin to move differently, slower, more intentional, as if each step is a form of prayer. People feel your calm without knowing why. You don't preach, you radiate. This is not arrogance. It's embodiment. You have become the temple you were always seeking. Your presence itself is the meditation. Your laughter, the mantra, your tears, holy water. You no longer search for transcendence, because you've discovered that the divine was never up there. It was always within the human, within the ache, the breath, the ordinary beauty of living one more day with an open heart. When Jung spoke of the self, the totality that includes all opposites, he was describing this luminous simplicity, the moment where love stops being something you fall into and becomes the air you breathe. To live in wholeness is to be intimate with everything, with the sunrise, with heartbreak, with silence, with laughter, to taste the sacred in a sip of coffee, to feel eternity in the way wind moves your hair, to recognize that every person you meet is another fragment of yourself, wearing a different story. You realize that nothing was ever lost. Even the years you spent disconnected were part of the choreography, the descent that taught you compassion, the longing that taught you prayer, the heartbreak that broke you open wide enough to receive life in full. Wholeness is not a state you achieve. It is a rhythm you remember. It is the dance of opposites, the heartbeat of the soul saying, I am both the wound and the healer, the question and the answer, the longing and the home. And in that realization, something extraordinary happens. Peace is no longer stillness. It's aliveness without fear. It's the quiet ecstasy of knowing that wherever you are, whatever happens next, you will meet it as yourself entirely, unapologetically, and awake. That is the final secret. The ecstasy of wholeness is not about becoming someone new. It's remembering who you have been all along. The woman beneath the masks, the soul beneath the story, the light that no shadow could ever extinguish. You are not searching anymore. You are becoming, and in that becoming, you discover what every mystic and every woman who ever healed herself has whispered through time. I am not waiting for love. I am love. I am not seeking the divine. I am the divine, remembering itself through me. The Jungian breath ritual and closing reflection. Take a deep breath in through your nose. Hold it just long enough to feel your own pulse, and let it go, slowly, through your lips. That breath you just took, that is the sound of your soul returning home, because everything you've just heard, every secret, every archetype, every longing, has never been about becoming someone else. It's been about remembering the woman you already are beneath all the noise. The woman who was always there, waiting for the right moment to rise, to breathe, to live fully again. Carl Jung said, "Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakens." And maybe that's why you found this video, not by chance, but because the universe decided it was time for you to awaken. So take another breath, and as you do, imagine drawing every fragment of yourself, every forgotten dream, every silenced emotion, every hidden desire, back into your heart. Let them rest there. No judgment, no fixing, just reunion. You've walked through the forbidden territories of desire. You've learned the power of surrender. You've spoken the language of devotion. You've met your shadow and your light. You've witnessed the alchemy of union. And finally, you've tasted the quiet ecstasy of wholeness. Now, as this journey closes, ask yourself one simple question. What would it feel like to live from this place every day? To wake each morning not searching for love, but radiating it? To move through the world as both student and teacher, human and divine, woman and soul intertwined? If this journey has resonated somewhere deep within you, if it has stirred something ancient yet familiar, let that be your sign to keep going inward, to keep discovering, to keep returning home to yourself. And if you'd like to continue this exploration of Jungian psychology, feminine awakening, shadow work, and the sacred art of remembering who you are, you're already in the right place. Subscribe to Inner Balance Psychology, not as an algorithmic act, but as a ritual of commitment to your own consciousness. Every video here is a mirror, a reflection of the woman you are becoming. When you click subscribe, take a breath and whisper to yourself, I choose to awaken. I choose to remember. Then, close your eyes, let your shoulders drop, feel your heart beat. That is the sound of life itself, the same rhythm that connects you to every woman who has ever walked this path of healing, the rhythm of the collective feminine soul awakening across the world. You are part of that awakening. You are not behind. You are not late. You are right on time. So, stay here, breathe here, return here whenever you forget who you are. Because this silence, this awareness, this gentle unfolding is your temple. And in this temple, you are both the seeker and the found. Welcome home, beloved. And remember, the light you've been searching for has always been inside you, waiting for the moment you were brave enough to see it.